So let's give her a warm welcome, Mikki. Thank you.
Oh God, there's nowhere to put my water bottle.
There is no place. We have a lousy place.
Step it up, Mike, step it up. I'm Mikki and I'm an alcoholic. Congratulations everybody that took chips, especially the first chip, the newcomer trip, and the 30 days. 30 days is fucking hard, you know. I love Alcoholics Anonymous, and I always say yes when I'm asked to speak because that's what I was told to do, you know. And I came in here and I was not wanting to be sober, right? I kind of fell into Alcoholics Anonymous, you know. In all reality, I was running from a drug dealer, and I figured he wouldn't look for me here. You know, it's not usually where they look. But let's start this off right. So my sobriety date is November 28, 2012. And I came into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous not looking for the gift of sobriety. I didn't really want to be here. I got dropped off in another state. And I was at a point where nobody else was answering the phone, and nobody would come get me, right? And thank God, individuals in Alcoholics Anonymous swooped me up, right? But let's start from the beginning. So I have been wound up so tight my entire life, right? And when the book talks about we like the effect produced by alcohol, I can relate to that, right? Because the first time I consumed alcohol, it was like the first time I was able to take a deep breath and breathe. And so I didn't drink like a normal person from the get-go. I think that I know that I treated that spiritual malady with other things prior to putting alcohol in my body, right? I'm actually from Prescott, one of the few, and growing up I used sports and running. By the time I was 12, I was running like 21 miles a week and playing soccer 7 days a week, because that was the only way that I had the ability to breathe, right? And at the age of 14, that stopped working. You know, and what am I going to do? Because I need to be able to breathe. Like, people just don't understand. It was like everybody else got this guidebook to life, and God just forgot to give me mine, right? Because it seemed like everybody around me had the ability to, like, function and, like, be themselves and breathe, right? That's a really big thing. Like, I was either overshooting the mark or not participating at all. You know, my husband likes to say when I get really excited about things, I get louder, so I really hope I don't start yelling at you, because there's a microphone, and I'm gonna be on YouTube. Okay. Awesome. So it's that ability to breathe, man. And alcohol was my solution. And I'd like to preface my story with the fact that when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I wasn't an alcoholic. I was a drug addict because my mom's an alcoholic and I'm nothing like my mother, you know? And a drug addict seems so much cooler, right? I walked into the rooms and I was 20 years old and everybody was older than me. And it just didn't seem like I fit, but I sat in these rooms and you guys seemed to have an excitement for life that I had no idea how to do, you know? And that just captured me, right? That language of the heart, you know? But I came in here and I sat in your rooms and I drank your coffee. I got sober in Redlands, California. And thank God for drug court, because the guys would play pinochle after the meeting and hacky sack before the meeting. It's the only reason I went to meetings. because I could play hacky sack before the meeting and I could play pinochle after, and they seemed to go in because they had some court cards. And so that's what we did, right? In the first 4 months in Alcoholics Anonymous, I sat in your meetings and I drank your coffee and I rarely participated because I'm a drug addict. I'm not an alcoholic. And thank God for members of Alcoholics Anonymous that carried the message to me regardless, you know? And it was in those times of hacky sack and pinochle that I got the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And what makes me an alcoholic, even though I haven't drank more than, not that much, because I found other forms of alcohol that seemed to work better and I was more functional. I'm a really bad drunk. I seem to very quickly get everybody mad, get the cops called, and end up in places where I don't realize where I am, right? It's just how I did. So when I did drink, I had these parameters of how I was going to drink, but I rarely drank because the other forms of alcohol, I could function. I could show up for work. I could go to school. I could function, right? I had the ability to breathe and I could function. And I could keep things looking good. Because that's all it was. They looked good. I started daily, so I'll say alcohol and I'll say drinking just because it's an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and I love the traditions and I'd like to keep AA going, so I'll do my part. But just use your imagination. But I used other forms and I started drinking on a daily basis at 14, right? As soon as I got that relief and that effect produced by alcohol, I chased it on a daily basis. Because I don't have the ability to breathe without it, right? And so I go through life and I see all of these people going through school and getting scholarships and going to college, and in all honesty, I just want to drink the way I want to drink, so I took a hostage at 18 and I got married. I mean, turns out you don't really have to like your husband that much. It's not a requirement. But that poor man. But I took a hostage, right? Because he would let me drink the way I wanted to drink, and he would go get a job, and I didn't want to get a job because I can't drink the way I want to drink, right? So I'll be a stay-at-home person that stays at home, as long as I can drink the way I want to drink, right? And that's what alcohol did to my life, right? It didn't matter what it was as long as I could drink the way I wanted to drink, and I would go through you, no matter who you are, to do that, right? And when I got here, it felt like I had lost the ability to know how to love another person, right? Because I love my family. My family are good people. They're not the reason I'm alcoholic. I had a normal childhood, but I would go through them to get what I needed to be able to breathe, right? It didn't matter. And I know now, since coming to Alcoholics Anonymous, it was that allergy, right? It was as soon as I consume alcohol in any form, that allergy is set off. And I'm off and running. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how much I love you. It doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And it's not about them. It's that my alcoholism kicks in and that allergy kicks in, and I'm going to go through you if I have to, right? And I didn't know that when I was coming in. I just knew my life was falling apart and nobody was answering my phone, and I didn't know why, right? I really was baffled. I never, the book talks about like trying to control your drinking or stop drinking, and that wasn't my story. Like, as soon as I found alcohol, nobody was going to get in the way of my ability to breathe, right? It was my lifeline. It was my solution to how to live life on a daily basis and do what all of these other people I saw around me do, like a normal person. I thought, then I did a 4-step and that delusion kind of popped, but I'll get to that later. But it didn't matter. Nothing mattered as long as I had the ability to breathe, right? And getting that next drink. And when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, I didn't know that it was because as soon as I put something into my body, that allergy kicks off and I don't have a choice. We see a lot of people come in these rooms and drink again, and sometimes it's baffling, but it's not, right? Because it's what we do. It's what alcoholics do. Because when I came in, my first sponsor explained to me the difference between a drug addict and an alcoholic. And it's not in the book, but it's my opinion, and it's what saved my life. So if you don't like it, just ignore it. But when you take drugs away from a drug addict, their life gets better, right? They get the job back, they stop going to jail. When you take drugs and alcohol away from an alcoholic, my life does not get better. It gets worse. I get more and more uncomfortable in my own skin and irritable, and I bring out homicidal tendencies in other people. Now I've got an example. So about 4 months sober, I hadn't worked the steps. I was sitting in these rooms, and I was drinking your coffee, and I was playing pinochle, and I did not do any of those steps. I didn't find God. Stories were funny, so I stayed around, right? And I was living in a sober living with 12 women in 3 bedrooms. You don't know life until that happens. One day I go out to get my car, and it was like the definition of a newcomer car, right? It was a 92 Dodge Shadow, and there was barbed wire holding on the bumper because something had happened. I don't remember what, but we fixed it with barbed wire because that's a good idea. And there was a gasoline leak, so you couldn't. You could smell it. It was probably very bad. The windows didn't roll down, so that didn't help. That's not true. The driver's side window rolled down about that much so that the smoke could go out, because I still smoked in it, because why wouldn't you smoke in a car? I'm very uncomfortable. And this is my only release, right? But I go out to my car and my lights won't work. And so I take it to a buddy in the program, and his dad's a mechanic, and he looks under the hood and he says, "Who the hell did you piss off?" I said, "What do you mean? I don't even know anybody in California. I haven't been here long enough," right? And he says, looks like somebody tried to cut your brakes and hit the wrong wire. And in that moment, I knew that I either had to be all in Alcoholics Anonymous and do what these people said that worked for them as a solution to a daily living, or I was going to die either by somebody else's hands, because my character defects come out and bring out homicidal tendencies in other people, or there was 2 options, right? And thank God that happened, right? Because I got into the book and I started working with a sponsor, and I started to fall in love with Alcoholics Anonymous, right? This is my guidebook to living. It's at times it's fucking baffling. We really don't have to do that much, right? Because I came in here and they didn't ask me to believe in their God. They didn't ask me to believe in anything. Right? They told me that, do I believe in something higher than me? More powerful than me? Okay, that's fine. Finish the steps. Right? Where I got sober in the Unity Club in Redlands, California, you got to work in service very quickly. And they used to say it all the time, they still do, that service keeps you sober. Right? And thank God I was raised in Alcoholics Anonymous where that wasn't, like it didn't sound like a suggestion when they were saying it. It was more of like a demand. But thank God, right? Because I got into service and I got into the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And so when I went through the book, and when my sponsor, we met once a week, we went through the book. When we got to a step, we worked it, right? And we read it tonight. We beg you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Right? And in that moment, he got down on his knees and he begged me to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And for some reason, it clicked, right? And when we got down and we did the third step, it was like, my life is no longer my business. I no longer have to carry this weight of how my life is supposed to look like, or what I'm supposed to do, or whatever, right? It's no longer my business. It's no longer my fault if shit's fucked up. It's God. I got a cop out, because I got to have one. And that was the moment, I got to that fourth step and I realized that, like, I was the problem. My selfish and self-centeredness was the problem from the beginning, way before I put alcohol in my body. It was the root of all of my problems. And the fact is I'm afraid of everything, right? Because I got no God, and I've got no spiritual solution to the spiritual malady. And thank God that, I say God a lot, but thank God, God kept me alive long enough to bring me to Alcoholics Anonymous, and Alcoholics Anonymous brought me back to God, right? And so we go through the fourth step and fifth step, and we get into 6 and 7, and I realize that because I'm so afraid all the time, I've got these character defects that just keep coming out, and we prayed about it, and then we went into 8 and 9. It wasn't a slow process by any means. There's 12 weeks and you're going out, right? You're going out and you're making amends and you're helping other people through the book. And so I started my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous, and then a lot has happened, right? I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous longer than I was getting drunk. And I grew up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and thank God, right? Because I didn't know how to live life, and you guys on a daily basis showed me, right? And that's why participation in meetings like this and having a home group is so important, because it was people in Alcoholics Anonymous who at 9 months of sobriety said, you should probably get a job. Why are you at the club so much? Like, do you have a job? No, I was just going to hang out with you. I mean, you guys are retired, so you're here all the time. What's wrong with me being here? Well, you got to be self-supporting through your own contributions. I'm like, oh, shit. Those old timers, they'll get you. And it was you guys who walked me through getting into school. At a year sober, I tried my darnest to stay in Southern California. I did not want to move back to Prescott. Not even a little bit. I didn't like your AA. You guys did not do it right. And I didn't want to be here, right? So in my life, God shows up where I have all of these ideas and these plans, and I continue to hit a brick wall over and over and over again. And then when I become willing to do what God has already got planned, things kind of just fall into place. Within an hour of saying, okay, fine, nothing's working out my way, I'll be willing to move back to Prescott. I was enrolled in school, I had a job, and I had a place to live. I was like, oh man, means I gotta move back to Prescott. And so I moved back to Prescott, and I proceeded to try to take over AA one meeting at a time, through one commitment at a time, and change Prescott AA. I failed. It's the same. But I got immersed in the fellowship, and I found friends here that you find your people. You guys are my people. I've tried to hang out with normies. They look at me very funny because I've got great ideas, right? Still, today, I got great ideas. And when I'm talking, their face gets more and more terrified. And I know it's probably not that great of an idea. And so when I come into Alcoholics Anonymous, I feel at home. Like, you guys are my people. And you guys walk me through life, I moved out here, and what am I doing on time? I got plenty? Okay. 2 hours? I could talk that long. You be careful. It'll feel like 9 months. But I came back to Prescott, and I got the opportunity to live out a living amends to my family, and develop a relationship sober with them that I've never had, a relationship with them I've never had, period. Right, and through that amends process, I had a living amends to my to my grandmother, because she died when I was drinking, and I was drunk through the whole thing. I didn't show up. You know, I don't think I had the ability to show up in that point in time. But I got woke up at about midnight one night, and my dad's mom is on life support, and he needs to be driven to California so that he can say goodbye. You know, and at that point in time, I had never gotten to live out a living amends. And so because of Alcoholics Anonymous, and because of you guys in the program, I know to show up. Because having a commitment at a meeting, I know how to show up. You know, and so I said yes, and I drove him out there, and I had the ability to show up as a good daughter. And the only reason I have that ability is because individuals in Alcoholics Anonymous have shown me how to do that. Because when I came to you, I didn't know how to be a daughter, I didn't know how to be a friend, I definitely didn't know how to be a wife, and I didn't know how to have relationships. But people in Alcoholics Anonymous have walked me through life. You know, I was thinking about coming tonight and realizing that I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, like I've grown up in Alcoholics Anonymous, and you people have walked me through everything I know how to do. And a lot has changed, and I was thinking about looking at me when I walked in, and I talked to somebody that I got sober with, and she was like, oh yeah, well you just had a lot less clothes, and and you were a lot angrier, right? Because I came into Alcoholics Anonymous and I was pissed. I was so angry at the world because you can't take the one thing that gives me the ability to breathe. Right? Like, what are you going to leave me with? Nothing. I don't have anything. Like, that dictates who I'm going to hang out with, where I'm going to go, how I'm going to get there, and who I'm going to depend on. Right? It dictated every facet of my life. And when I got here, you guys showed me how to develop relationships and show up for commitments and be of maximum service to God and our fellows, right? My first sponsor died in December. And so usually when I have these things, I call him and we talk about God. And today I got to call two of the girls that I got sober with in that house of 10 women. And it was a beautiful experience because I've gotten to have relationships in these rooms with people. And if you're sitting in here and you've got that one person you've got in sober living, or like that one person that's newly sober with you, just hold on to them and walk through life, right? And we got to talk about our experiences of coming into Alcoholics Anonymous and not knowing what the fuck we're doing, right? I don't know how to be sober. I don't know how to get sober. And luckily, we have this guidebook that literally outlines it over and over and over and over again. It's a beautifully written book. It's amazing. But with that outlining, it talks about our primary purpose. And my first sponsor always said, after I got here and I get through the steps and I find God and I find that relief, because it's a sufficient substitute, right? Our book talks about it. It's a sufficient substitute. And I don't think it's just sufficient, right? The life, if I would have like written out everything I wanted when I walked into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have shortchanged myself 100 times over, you know? And it's through maximum service to God and our fellows that I have gotten all of those things in my life. Especially through commitments. I actually just moved back up to the area. I was living down in Tempe. I got on a committee, like Curtis is on. Be careful. You'll end up with a husband and children. Right? Because that'll happen. And I get to grow with him, and we get to grow spiritually, emotionally, and physically, right? And the only reason we get the relationship that we have today is because of Alcoholics Anonymous on a daily basis. Because, don't get me wrong, I call my sponsor a lot and be like, I want to kill him. She says, well, let's talk about first, and then I'll bring a shovel, if it's a good idea, right? There's always good sponsorship. Usually it's not a good idea, and usually it's me. I'm not getting what I want. He's not doing what I think he should be doing. It's got nothing to do with him. But I get to learn in Alcoholics Anonymous, and because of old-timers who showed me how to have a healthy relationship, I get to have a healthy relationship today. You know, and I get the opportunity to be a mom to 2 children. Like, I've kept them alive. I was talking about this today. Like, they've been alive. My oldest will be 2 at the 21st of this month, and he's alive. Like, I could barely keep me alive, let alone another human being. You know, that's a big deal. If you don't think so, I mean, he's very accident prone too, so I think it's a big accomplishment. And life has not been rainbows and butterflies, you know. Sobriety can be hard. Life is hard. Life is painful sometimes. Sitting here before the meeting started, I was thinking back, and 2 years ago, I was in the hospital having that child, but I got diagnosed with a certain type of pregnancy, and in this chance you can die, right? So this is my first child, and during a moment that I expected, and I had all these old ideas that this was going to be a joyous moment, I'm preparing a living will and making sure that if I pass, things are in order for my kid to have a life, right? Making sure my life insurance is up to date, which is crazy because I couldn't even buy car insurance. That was really hard, you know? And I have life insurance, like an adult. And so it's because Alcoholics Anonymous, I was able to go through that situation and realize that it's okay. God's got him, and God's got me. And even if the worst case scenario happens, God's got him, right? And it is only because of Alcoholics Anonymous and the people in these rooms who continually show me on a daily basis how to live life and how to put AA first is that I get my life today, right? One of my favorite sayings is, don't let the life that AA brought you take you away from your AA life, right? And that has been big for me to stay in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous or whatever fellowship you get it at. I don't care. If it's working, I'm trying not to cuss because I'm being recorded. I'm going to be on YouTube. It's a lot of pressure. You shouldn't announce that. If you're getting it somewhere, get it. If it's working, if you're not miserable, do it. What's fantastic about Alcoholics Anonymous and what I clung on to when I came here was the fact that it is voluntary. You got the opportunity to sit. There's a lot of people that don't. I got on a daily basis, I get the opportunity to sit in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I've buried a lot of friends that don't get that opportunity anymore. You know? And it was a gift that was given to me on a day I wasn't looking for it. You know? But through the years, I've been able to do some really cool shit, you know? About 4 years sober. Do we have some stoners in here? Okay, thank you. Okay, think about this. You know when you're sitting on the couch and you're like, I'm going to do all these cool things. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go places. But you don't ever leave that couch. You maybe go down to the Circle K and back to the couch, right? Maybe the refrigerator. And that has been the story of my life, right? I was going to do all of these cool things and I was going to travel. And I'm so terrified of life that I can't do that. But in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I've worked those 12 steps and because I've stayed in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, I've gotten the ability to show up, right? So I get a call at 4 years sober, and I've got a friend, and she goes, hey, do you want to meet this guy in Costa Rica? I got a house down there. You can go backpacking with him for 2 weeks. He just needs a buddy. I said, well, I've never met this guy, so I don't know if I want to meet this guy in another country. He goes, oh, he's great. He's in the program. He's got like 10 years sober. It's going to be great. And I said, fuck it, no, why not, right? And I got to backpack through the Pacific coast or the Caribbean coast of Costa Rica for 2 weeks with a guy named Daniel. Never saw him again. But it was a great experience because we got to talk about AA and we got to talk about God in a place that's absolutely beautiful. But the fact is if I wasn't in Alcoholics Anonymous, if I wasn't doing the things that I have to do on a daily basis for that daily reprieve, I wouldn't get those opportunities. I'd be absolutely terrified to move. You know, I can't live life. You know, and even with school, like I was paralyzed when people talked about college and doing things and participating in life. And because of Alcoholics Anonymous and showing up on a daily basis and learning how to live life, I've got a bachelor's degree. I mean, I've got a lot of debt, but I got a bachelor's degree, so that's cool. And I get to live a life that I never imagined. You know, I get to work with horses. I absolutely love working with horses. And I get to help nonprofits through grant writing, which is baffling because I'm super fucking dyslexic. And I was never good enough in that aspect of my life. But I'm enough today, right? 2 minutes, I'm watching. And it's because of going through these programs and growing spiritually and getting that connection with God that I have the ability and the opportunity to say yes, regardless of if I'm scared or not, right? Because if you're sitting in this room and you don't feel like doing something, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in AA. You don't have to feel like you want to be sober. You don't have to feel like you want to go to a meeting. There have been many, many times in my sobriety that I didn't feel like going and making coffee an hour before the meeting. There's many times in my sobriety that I didn't feel like going into a committee meeting where they just talk over and over again, or vote on like 12 cents. Who's got the 12 cents, you know? I'll give you 12 cents if we can move on. You know, but I get these opportunities because God moves me to where he would have me be, right? And even through sobriety, like I get really comfortable. My life has never been this good, but I won't want to grow. And so sometimes God's got to take a 2x4 and be like, you're going to grow whether you want to or not, to move me where he would have me be, you know? And in the last 2 years, I've grown in my spiritual connection more than I have my entire sobriety, right? Through that prayer and meditation. Because when I got here, I couldn't sit still. I mean, people talked about sitting down and meditating, and that was cool. I like Buddha, he sounds nice, but I just couldn't sit still. You know, I just couldn't do it, right? So through the years, I've used other things, rock climbing, because you can't not be present in rock climbing or you fall. And I tend to work really well under, like, do it or die. Because that's what it was when I came into Alcoholics Anonymous, right? This is my last house on the block. I do the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and find the solution that you guys are talking about and genuinely happy about. Like, people were really happy. Like, people are genuinely happy here, and that baffled me, right? I didn't know how to do that. And today, like, I get to be happy on a daily basis. I get to wake up and not want to die. And that is a huge deal, right? Because on a daily basis for the last 4 years of my drinking, I woke up and I just kept going like it didn't work this time. You know, I couldn't get enough substances into my body to complete it, right? Like, fuck, why didn't it work this time? And on a daily basis, I get to wake up and enjoy life and be present, you know, and that just baffles me. It's really kind of crazy. That this program, we really have to do very little to get so much, right? That going through those steps and writing out on a piece of paper and trusting another human being and then going out and helping others, like, that's it. That's all it requires. It's crazy. And we get all this cool things. Like, we get to the ability to breathe on a daily basis and, like, not want to die. Right? And, like, just baffles me. But, so I'll ignore that. But we see miracles in these rooms a lot so that we don't realize that they're miracles. But, like, if you're sitting in this seat tonight, like, you're a miracle. Like, whether you're drunk or not, it doesn't matter. You made it. Right? And that's just fantastic. I forgot how hot this room is. It's like, buy a couple swamp coolers with that thing. Put more than $1 in the basket. But maximum service to God, my fellows, right? Like, it boils down to that, you know. I've got the opportunity to stay in these rooms and live a life beyond my wildest dreams because I've said yes to those opportunities. You say yes when you're asked. If I can do it, if the day is open, it's yours. If you need sponsorship and you're willing to ask me to sponsor you, I'm available, right? Because that's where the magic happens. Right? Sitting across another alcoholic and watching the light turn on. So this last year in May, at the beginning of May, I'm going to get through this because I said I wasn't going to do this. At the beginning of May, I woke up and my husband was gone, and I didn't know why. And he texted me and he said, I'm at my sponsor's house with Devin. I'll let you know what's happened. My sponsee had been hit on a motorcycle. She had just taken 9 months that night. And driving home from a meeting, somebody pulled out in front of her, and she hit the car and died. And it's a tragic accident. But what's amazing about this program in Alcoholics Anonymous is that we get the ability to show up, right? And I got the ability to show up for her significant other, you know, and be there when he had to go through things, and be there when he needed somewhere to go. 2 more minutes. And I got the opportunity to walk her through a 5th step that Saturday before. You know, and she had that light in her eyes that so many people don't want to do the steps to get, right? That fire for Alcoholics Anonymous. And she got to die sober, you know, and I got to see it. I got to see her find God. And I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes shit's hard. But you just show up, you know. Thank you guys for listening to me talk. And I'm grateful that I got to show up for a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, because Alcoholics Anonymous saved my life.